Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman, wakes up one morning in the form of an ugly giant insect. At first, he thinks it's just a bad dream. Looking at the wall clock, he realizes that he overslept, and that if he doesn't hurry now, he'll miss his train, which will result in him being late for work, and then having to justify himself to his boss. The mother, noticing that her son hasn't left yet, knocks anxiously on his room door, as this isn't at all usual for him. She asks him for an explanation, as she's convinced that he's ill. Gregor tries to reassure her by telling her that he'd leave as soon as possible in order to at least catch the 7 o'clock train. However, this wouldn't save him from being late to work for the first time in many years. He notices, however, that his voice has changed. Even his sister Greet, with whom he's always had a close relationship, whispers to him through the door and asks him to open it. At this point, all the family members begin to seriously believe that he's really sick. Gregor, in the meantime, tries to get out of bed, but it's completely impossible for him to move his body. While trying to move, he notices that his office manager, the prosecutor, has just arrived at his apartment, determined to understand the reason for his subordinate's unjustified absence at the departure of the 5 o'clock convoy. In his new situation, Gregor finds it very difficult to move, and after finally managing with immense effort to roll his body onto the floor, he repeats for the umpteenth time that he'll soon open the door to his room. The impatient prosecutor warns him of the consequences he'll face if he persists in this attitude, and even threatens to dismiss him. He adds that his recent performance has been totally unsatisfactory. Gregor objects and tries to answer, but by now, no one understands a single word of what he is saying. Finally, he manages to unlock the door handle with his mouth. The door opens, whereupon the horrified guest first runs back to the stairs and then flees from the apartment, leaving the family members petrified. George's mother faints, while his father chases him back into the room with the cane the prosecutor left behind and a rolled up newspaper, beating his feet on the floor to frighten him. Gregor remains lying in pain, and his father locks the door again. The sight of what Gregor has become has triggered strong reactions of horror. Exhausted, Gregor falls asleep. When the young man awakens, he sees that someone has left him some milk and some bread. At first, he's delighted, but soon finds that the milk no longer tastes good to him. As a result, he decides to settle under the couch. The next morning, when his sister sees that he hasn't touched the milk, she replaces it with rotting food scraps, which Gregor consumes with relish. From now on, a routine begins in which his sister feeds him and cleans the room while Gregor hides under the couch to avoid frightening her. Gregor has no choice but to listen to the conversations of the family members through the wall. They often discuss the difficult financial situation they suddenly find themselves in, since Gregor can no longer provide for them. Greet will also no longer be able to attend the long-awaited violin lessons at the conservatory. The more time passes, the more comfortable Gregor seems in his new body. He even begins to climb the walls and run happily on the ceiling. When Greet discovers her brother's new pastime, she decides to remove some furniture to give him more space. However, while trying to keep a picture hanging on the wall from being removed, Gregor leans on it, causing his mother to faint. He runs out of the room into the kitchen, where his father sees him and throws apples at him, one of which gets stuck in his back armor. Gregor is now badly injured, and his movements become difficult and painful. One evening, Gregor's room door is accidentally left open, while Greet plays the violin in the living room for her parents and the new house guests. The family has had to rent some rooms as extra income. Her brother, listening to her, is very impressed. Immediately after, however, he is caught. He had sneaked out of the room to listen better, and his father tries to chase him back. The 3 tenants announce that they would stay, but without paying rent, because the apartment is kept in truly disgusting conditions. After a short time, Greet finds a job, and Gregor is completely on his own. His father thinks that they have to get rid of Gregor as soon as possible in order to avoid going broke. The rejection by his family and the realization that he is a burden on their already meager finances without being able to contribute anything plunges Gregor into such a depression that he refuses the food offered to him until he slowly dies. So, he decides to rid the family of his presence. As a result, the family kicks out the 3 boarders, disposes of his body. The maid, who is dismissed, throws it into the trash on her own. They forget about his existence and manage to recover from the economic problems that plagued them. The final part of the book outlines a happy ending for the family. They decide to move to a smaller apartment than their current one to save even more money. Finally, the parents realize that their little daughter seems to have become very beautiful despite the difficulties they have gone through, and they believe that she will soon find a good husband.